This video was made possible thanks to the support of the incredible patrons listed on screen. We couldn't do this without you. Hello there everybody, and welcome back to Affinity for Commander. My name is Martin.
And my name is Alex.
And today we're going to be starting a new series which I'm going to be calling Fact or Fiction. And the topic of this video was voted for by our patrons, and it is White has no ramp. So let's be honest, green is the colour you think of when you think of ramping. It's Rampant Growth is the card that the name came from. So yeah, there you go.
I didn't know that.
The more you know. So other colours tend to struggle with keeping up. So we're here to tell you that white does have ramp. Whether it's the same quality or not, we'll leave it to you to decide, but there are cards you can use in order to keep ahead of your lands in this colour.
As always, if you like any of the cards featured in this video, then you can head to Flipside Gaming to get a fantastic 10% off at checkout with promo code Affinity. Or if you choose to shop at TCG Player, Magic Madhouse or Card Market, then you can use our affiliate program links in the description below. Helps support the channel and doesn't cost you anything extra. And be sure to stick around to the end of the video, where anyone who entered is within a chance of winning one of our 5 €20 vouchers.
But for now though, let's carry on with the video. So before we begin, I think it's worth defining what we mean by ramp, and I have written a very fancy sounding definition for the subject. So, let's get my paper out. So, ramping is the act of increasing the amount of mana at one's disposal, either with mana producing non-land permanents, increasing the amount of mana your permanents produce, or artificially increasing the number of lands you have on the battlefield. Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, very official.
So basically all this means is by using mana dorks, or by ramping with cards like we said before, Rampant Growth, or by having cards like the double the mana your cards produce, or if you tap a land for mana, add another one. So with regards to white, we're going to be looking mostly at cards that fetch land, because there aren't many mana dorks. There are some, and there are definitely no cards that increase the amount of mana your lands produce. I have searched high and low and could not find a single one. So
there's no white crypt gas.
There's no white crypt gas. So before we actually get into those cards, I have a few rules about what cards I'm going to discuss. So first off, it's only going to be mono-coloured spells, mono-white spells. So no Yasharn, the implacable?
The ball.
The pig that's green and white. Implacable Earth, I'm pretty sure it is.
Sure.
It's a card, it's here. So that is white, obviously, but it's also not white at the same time.
Yeah,
so
green.
It's green. So I'm not mentioning any cards that are multicoloured. Okay. This is for if you're playing a mono-white deck, or a deck that can have white.
Has to be able to be fit into Heliod.
Exactly, yeah. Secondly, no white cards that have a non-white colour identity. So a Darker Unicorn is a white card that taps for blue, but it only works for upkeep costs, so it's really bad anyway. But any card that has another colour in its identity or text box is not going to be in this list. Thirdly, no colourless cards that produce white mana, so no mana rocks, or Gold Mia is a good one. It's a colourless card that taps for white.
I love Gold Mia though.
Yeah, but it's not white. So by the definition of this video, it's not going in. Sorry.
Fine.
And finally, the last thing I need to mention is that the last set to be released as of the recording of this video was Kaldheim, so obviously any cards released after that that are really good ramp spells in white will not be in the video, as we cannot see into the future. So please don't leave us a comment saying you missed this card if this card doesn't exist yet. So that about covers it. Let's jump straight into the cards that I have selected. There are 20 of them. First off, we have Core Cartographer, Knight of the White Orchid, and Stoic Farmer. So all three of these cards, search your library for a land and put them into play. Core Cartographer is just straight away into the battlefield, no messing, no extra effects, requirements, anything like that.
A worse sad robot.
I mean, yes, I suppose. And I was thinking more it's like Wood Elves, but it's mana more expensive. Yeah. So it's not the best kind of ramp, but it's no messing. You want to land, you got to land. Boom.
Take what you get.
Whereas Knight of the White Orchid and Stoic Farmer both require your opponents to have more lands than you in order to work. So it's not a huge problem, because if you're against a green player, you're most likely going to have less lands, or if you're going not first in a game of EDH, then you should be, a land behind. So it's an annoying requirement, but it's one of those where it's there when you need it. If you need to ramp because you're behind, you've got it. And if you're doing fine, not so much.
It seems to fit the theme of White, where you're keeping balance with people rather than going ahead.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. So they are the best ramp White spells that I could find, but there are other cards that do similar functions. Sometimes would be seen as worse. Other times you could think, well, this is on par depending on the situation you want. But they are your easiest to define ones. They are land, battlefield, go.
Staples of any mono white deck.
Exactly, yeah. So the next cards I want to bring to light are Boreous Charger and Cartographer's Hawk. Now, Boreous Charger is similar to the other cards, but it's a leaves the battlefield effect rather than an enters the battlefield effect.
I was so excited when I saw this card being spoiled, then I read it closely. I was like, leaving.
Yeah, but it does mean you can flicker it and do things like that. And I don't know, it just seems like it's a bit more versatile depending on the situation.
Yeah, if you got something like you're playing this in something like Rune, but then equally you've got green, but why? But if you are having like a blue-white flicker, like Braga, that's a much better example.
That's a good example.
Then you can flicker it and you can use it repeatedly, so then it is better.
The only downside to that is its requirements are your opponents need to have more lands than you, so you can only do it
I'm sensing a
couple
theme
of times.
here.
Yeah, it's all about being on par with your opponents, not overtaking them.
Yeah.
And then Cartographer's Hawk, I personally think it's a lot of hoops to jump through to get a land, so it has to deal damage to your opponent. So straight away you play it, you have to wait a turn before it can attack. You have to hit your opponent who hasn't blocked, and your opponent also has to have more land than you. You then put the Hawk back into your hand, and then you can search your library for a land. So it's it's a really roundabout way of tutoring for a land, but it's an option. It's one of very few options you have. So
If you really need to make sure you're accelerating, like your commando costs a huge amount, as well.
It's only 2 mana, so if you draw it in your opening hand, you play it turn 2. The odds are they won't have a flyer turn 3.
Exactly.
But it's something. It's a card.
It's a card.
It's a card. Quote of the day. So the next 2 cards are more than just one-trick ponies. They trigger in each player's turn. In case of Keeper of the Accord, it's each opponent's end step, and in Oath of Leisures, it's each player's upkeep.
I love Keeper of the Accord.
So yeah, Keeper of the Accord is good because, like I say, it's each opponent. So we've got, do you have more land than me? No. Okay. Do you have more land? No. Okay. You do. I'll get land. And it also has the added bonus of it gives you creatures if they have more creatures. So it's not just a land tutor. It's also a creature ramping, which is, it's about equality. You have more than me. We will now have the same. And I won't go any further. So it's very, very white.
Yeah.
So we both agree that's a good card.
Oh, it's a great card.
Oath of Leisures. I don't know. Are you aware of this card? So you're going to hate it instantly, right?
Does it give your opponents things?
So it says at the beginning of each upkeep,
right?
If an opponent has more land than you, put a land into play.
I'm liking it. Wait, hold from the library?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it triggers in everyone's upkeep, so it gives your opponents more lands if another player has more land. So it's one of those...
1 star.
Alex doesn't like giving his opponents any sort of benefit. And to be fair, with this case, I can see it. It's more a case of if you're playing a group hug deck, I can see this being a wonderful card because you're going, Alex has just ramped for 8 land on turn 3. We're all going to catch up together with, slowly to him, and he's going to get no benefit from this card ever because by the time we've caught up, it's too late for him to get anything. So I can see it being good in that respect and making friends. Alex doesn't like making friends, so he doesn't like this card. It's not the best option, is it really? So, in terms of tutoring for land from your library to the battlefield, that's about it for white. But, to make up for it, there's quite a bit of land from library to hand. Now, it's not technically ramping, but being able to hit your land drop each turn is valuable in itself.
Yeah,
so,
I'm going to say, most of the times when people fall behind EDH, it's nothing to do with a lack of ramp, it's because they never hit the land drops consistently.
Exactly.
Like, a land drop into a cultivate is great, but if you're using a cultivate to keep up, that doesn't feel as good.
Yeah, you're not getting more things out. You're using your mana to keep up.
Exactly, yeah.
So these next cards, we have Gift of Estates, Land Tax, and Tithe. They all search your library for land to put into your hand. In most cases, it's either a plains card, so not a basic, or a land.
One of these is not like the others.
Yes, Tithe is monetarily very expensive because I think it's on the reserve lists. It's an old card.
It's 1 mana.
Whereas Land Tax is also relatively expensive because it's an enchantment that triggers in each turn. And then you've got Gift of Estates, which is dirt cheap. So buy Gift of Estates.
Yeah, Gift of Estates is a lovely budget option that just makes sure that for the next so many turns you are hitting your land drops. Land Tax, whilst a bit expensive, is just so good.
It's good value. All these cards are 1 or 2 mana, so it means you play them early, you get value off them early, you stay in the game.
Yeah.
So, and like we've seen it before in so many times, you play your Tuvasa deck, which is Enchantress Tribal. It's 3 colours. Play your land tax turn 1.
Oh yeah.
Turn 2, you go and search for 1 of each basic for the land that you need.
Yeah, the fact
and
that
you
you
are
don't...
set for mana then.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons land tax is so good. It triggers constantly. There's no requirements for it. You can get any colours of basics.
Well, there are requirements, and it's the usual response of white. Your opponent needs to have less land than you.
But yeah, as long as you're not going first, that's usually enough. Like, even if it triggers once,
then
would you play a 1 mana sorcery search your library for any 3 basics?
Exactly. So these are all good for longevity in the game of making sure you're keeping up, staying in the right position. On a similar vein, the next 3 cards are kind of worse versions of those 3, but they all have something extra to add to them to kind of make them on par, almost. Depends on your point of view. So we've got Weathered Wayfinder, a Restless Explorer, and the Birth of Melentis, which I didn't know was a card because it when you type in like land, for example, on Scryfall or Gather or whatever you use, it doesn't search for land, it searches for a plains. So it's the same with Core Cartography. They don't show up when you search for land tutoring, so you've got to be careful with those. But Weathered Wayfinder is repeatable. It's 1 mana tap, so you have to wait a turn or give it haste. So just for any land.
Yeah.
So that's really good. But it is just a 1/1, so it's easy to get rid of. You've then got a Restless Explorer, which is you search for multiple lands, depending on how many players have more lands than you.
So that's good. It's a bit scalable.
Yeah, exactly. If you are well behind, you're going to catch up more.
Or if you go last.
Yeah. And again, it's the same as Weathered Wayfinder, really, or I'd say better than Weathered Wayfinder in terms of it's a creature. So when you played it, it's done its job. It can be sacrificed as a big creature, whereas Weathered Wayfinder you don't want to block with because you want to use it again.
Yeah.
And then the Birth of Melentis is a saga.
Yeah.
As well as finding you a land, it also makes you a 0/4 wall, which is a blocker to keep you in the game whilst you carry on.
Yeah.
And then you also gain 2 life, which is like
it's not the last
that's
thing.
the final thing. Gain 2 life.
Wow.
It is a 2 mana spell, so you can't expect much. But like, I just think that's the worst possible effect on a saga
That's
ever.
the 3rd end of a saga.
Gain 2 life.
2 life.
Yeah. So there's 3 more cards that find you land.
I really like Restless Explorer. The fact that the Wayfarer gets you any land, so you can like say if you have
Tron pieces.
get your Tron pieces, or if you have certain themes, like if you are playing Enchantress or you've got some powerful enchantment, you can get like Hall of Healer Generosity. That's
Oh yeah, definitely.
Then you can actually get something. Or if you're on the 4th land and you need one, go get Temple of the False God.
Temple of the False God.
Then that seems actually really good.
Yeah, it's a good card. I like it.
Yeah.
It has its downfalls, which make the other cards mentioned
but
potentially
better.
better.
You know, it doesn't do. Doesn't gain you 2 life.
Doesn't gain you 2 life. Can't underestimate that 2 life. There are. Why are you laughing? He's seen the next topic after this, and he's lost it. So, the next thing, other than having spells that find you land, is there are cycling cards that specifically are land cycling. So for 2 mana, you discard them and find a land.
Yeah.
So we've got Eternal Dragon and Noble Templar are plains cycling specific. You can find a plains card. Again,
So you get cards, so you can get a dual land if you need to.
most of these cards search for a plains or a basic land. So that's not just find a basic plains. You can find multiple cores if you're into multiple cores. But then Gleam of Resistance is the 3rd one, but that's just a basic land cycling. So that is, I'm playing 4 colours. I'll go and find this swamp I need. So like that all the effects are 2 mana. They all have something else stuck on, which is situationally good. Like you can play that 5/5 dragon if you want to for 7 mana, but you can also just use them to tutor for land. So I like things that have options. Options are important in Magic, especially in mono white. You need options. So that's the only 3 cards that are cycling that don't just discard draw. They tutor cycle in whites.
Good.
Next up, we have our only mana dork in white that I could find that was mono white, and that is Sunseed Nurturer. Now, for 3 mana, you get a 1/1 that taps to add 1 colourless mana to your mana pool. Not great 3 mana for a mana dork, but it does have the added bonus of at the end of your turn, if you control a creature of power 5 or greater, you may gain 2 life. So we were saying before with
why is it always 2 life?
2 life, important.
Why is it 2 life?
So yeah, it's not a fantastic mana dork. It is there though, if you really want it.
Yeah, 3 mana, like the fact that it doesn't even make white mana, it makes colourless mana.
It's really random, isn't it? But that is the white mana dork that exists.
Single dork.
It feels lonely, but I'm sure they'll print more in the future. Maybe they won't.
Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll leave it.
Done. That's that one. So you can probably tell by Alex's facial expression throughout this video that, like, I chose these cards. This is my selection of cards, and he disapproves of literally all of them. But you make do with what you've got. Okay, moving on from that reaction. So we're getting into the weird cards, which are really grasping at straws in terms of ramping. Endless Horizons comes in, and you can exile any amount of land from your library underneath it. And then in each of your turns, you can put one of those planes into your hand. So, on the one hand, best case scenario, you're never going to miss a land drop because you've got to see it. On the worst case scenario, someone destroys the enchantment the second you've played it and you just don't have any lands in your library anymore.
This literally seems like someone looked at land tax and went, I can make that significantly worse.
Yeah, if you have a way of making your enchantments indestructible or shroud, I mean, if maybe you have enough lands and you're sick of drawing them, get rid of the rest from your library and you won't have to draw another one again. But it is not great in most circumstances because
99 is still most.
Like,
you're right.
You're going to play it and people are going to go, whatever. Until you put like 20 land under it, then they're going to go, I know, I have to mess this guy up. Blow it up.
Yeah.
Like, it's just asking for you to be sad. So there's that one. And finally, we have this is the worst use of a removal spell I've ever seen in my life section. So Path to Exile and Settle the Wreckage. Really good removal spells.
Very good removal spells.
Also function as a ramp spell if you use it on your own creature.
I remember one time I was playing, right, this is true, I was playing the Control Mirror in Modern. It was Jeskai Control Mirror. And literally, my opponent had missed a land drop, so all he did was path his own Snapcaster Mage to keep up with land.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, okay, I know there's a board wipe coming, I've got an army of mono white tokens, might as well make them lands instead. Like,
swing, settle my own creatures.
No one will see it coming, and everyone will laugh at you, but you'll have all the land you ever need. So yeah, that is, if you are desperately struggling, it's an option. You can path your 1/1 and find a land.
Basically.
You'll then regret it when they play their really big creature and you've used your removal to find a land, but it is a possible thing you can do.
It comes under the umbrella of a white card that does increase your number of lands.
Yes. And with that, we come to the end of our video. I do hope that you enjoyed it and enjoyed seeing Alex's face as he read all these impractical cards. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon so you know when our videos are released, and leave us a comment. It does make a big difference to us, and we are so close to 10,000 subscribers now. If we make it by the end of the year, we will be so happy. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and check out our Patreon page where you can vote on upcoming videos. And now, as promised, I have the pleasure of announcing the winners of our card market giveaway. Congratulations to Luca BD, Adam Crayford, Gus S, Gethin, and Bobbit the Hobbit. You have all won one of our €20 gift vouchers for cardmarket.com. If our winners could contact us via Twitter, Facebook, email, or Patreon, then we can send over your gift voucher codes ready for use instantly.
And if you weren't one of our winners, then don't fret, we'll be running another competition when we hit 10,000 subscribers, so be sure to stay tuned for that. But that's all for now though, we'll see you next time. Stay safe out there.